viewers, as we have promised earlier, we are going to talk today about the Eastern Desert in Egypt. What are the most attractive destinations there? What are the sightseeing to be seen there? We did not hear much about the monuments and sightseeing in the Eastern Desert in Egypt. We used to hear more about the Western Desert and the safaris there, but to know more about the Eastern Desert and its activities and its main attractions, we are very much delighted to have our dear guest in the studio, Dr. Mohamed Nabil, the Egyptologist and expert in that field. Hello, doctor, and thank you very much for being our guest for today.
Good morning, Dr. Mohamed, and we've just learned from you that there is a large number of pharaonic and Christian touristic sites in the Eastern Desert. Would you please shed some light on this part of Egypt, as we don't have much information about it, and what kind of tourism can take place there?
Of course, but first we need to know something about the history of Egypt and the Eastern Desert. We know that the Egyptians were nomadic people at the very beginning, and they were traveling from place to place. Once they found the Nile, they settled and they started to build their civilization. That's why we always say that Egypt is the gift of the Nile.
Right.
But if Egypt is the gift of the Nile, the ancient Egyptian civilization remains indebted to the riches of the Eastern Desert, because the ancient Egyptians, or the pharaohs of the ancient Egyptians, sent their campaigns and expeditious campaigns to the Eastern Desert to bring stones to refine the civilization of the ancient Egyptians. So basically, the ancient Egyptians, since the dawn of history, sent their expeditions to the Eastern Desert for quarrying. That's why it is very interesting to have or to see beautiful graffiti scattered and inscribed everywhere in the Eastern Desert. The Eastern Desert occupies 21% of the Egyptian land. And actually it is very interesting that we have more than 21 wadis or 21 valleys in the Eastern Desert, divided into 5 main areas. The southern area, or the southern part, then we have the Red Sea routes. Then we have Wadi al-Hammamat, which has a one wadi or one valley. Then we have Safaga al-Qusayr. Then we have the northern part of the Eastern Desert. Of course, the oldest representation of the Eastern Desert goes back to 2900 BC. It goes back to the time of King Den, one of the kings of the first dynasty of the Egyptian civilization, and it was very interesting to find King Den is smiting one of the enemies of the Eastern Desert. So before going there for quarrying, the ancient Egyptians wanted to have full control to secure the Nile. So before quarrying, they wanted to secure the civilization of the Egyptians, so they wanted to defeat the enemies of the Eastern Desert. Then they started to go there. One of the most beautiful attractions, because we were talking about this, we have Qift al-Qusayr route, and we have Wadi al-Hammamat, and we have more than 250 graffiti goes back to the time of the Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, and New Kingdom of the ancient Egyptian civilization. And it's very interesting that you can go there and you can camp over there and you can take nice pictures of these places. What is very interesting about this, that we can learn something about the ancient Egyptians themselves, because the ancient Egyptians themselves wrote stories over there telling us that one day while they were quarrying over there, they found a gazelle and she was pregnant, and everybody stopped working, and then she went up on one of the rocks and she gave birth. That's why they said that this rock is beautiful and we will cut this rock to take it back to the king. So that's why there is, or there are so many stories about this in the Eastern Desert.
Right, and what about the most important projects that can take place in this area that can help living conditions over there and tourism over there?
Actually, as Majesty said before, that everybody talks about the Western Desert of Egypt, but nobody talks about the Eastern Desert of Egypt. The Eastern Desert has more potentials because basically it's very close to the Red Sea. So you can go to swim, you can go snorkeling, you can go diving, then you can go camping in the desert. So in the Western Desert, we don't have the Red Sea, or we don't have, we have the Mediterranean, of course, in the north, but it's very far away. So that's why it's very interesting that we have the Nile on the west and we have the Red Sea on the east. So you can combine between this. The tourists who are on cruises visiting Luxor and Aswan and all of this, they can take the jeeps or they can take 4x4 vehicles and they can visit the quarries of the ancient Egyptians. They can visit the gold mines of the ancient Egyptians because we have over 80 gold mines over there in this area. And which is very interesting, we found something very interesting. We found that the hammers of the ancient Egyptians were very small, smaller than the usual ones.
Yes.
And that's why they accused the ancient Egyptians that they used the children, but they were not children, they were dwarfs. Right. So they took dwarfs with them for quarrying and to go inside the gold mines because they are very small and tiny, so they can go deep in the mountains to bring gold. So basically, we can visit the southern part of the Eastern Desert. We can visit the gold mines over there. There is a temple, goes back to the time of Seti I, and it's a miniature of the temple of Abydos. So we can combine between the two temples. We can have a tour visiting the temple of Seti I, and we can go to visit the temple of Wadi Kanais. And also we have Christian monasteries over there. We have two big monasteries, St. Antonius and St. Paul. We have the northern part of the Eastern Desert. There is a location, it's called Brenike. And Brenike is the port or the harbor. And the Romans used to bring elephants from Africa to this harbor and from this harbor to Asia. And they used ships called Elephantagoi. So we can have a museum over there called the Elephantagoi Museum to represent this life of the Eastern Desert. Of course, the Eastern Desert has, I cannot say problems, because each problem carries its seeds inside. In the Eastern Desert, to go there, we need to get like permits. This is for security reasons, of course, because you are in the middle of nowhere and all that. So if you want to send the tourists there, so they need protection. So that's why we need to inform.
Is there a possibility to stay in the Eastern Desert, Dr. Nabil?
You can stay over there, but of course we start to get the permits 21 days before that.
Do they have any hotels constructed or small? I mean,
all the hotels are scattered along the Red Sea. But inside the Eastern Desert, we don't have.
Not even ecologists?
No ecologists. There are camps, because actually life in the Eastern Desert is very tough. But it's very interesting to go there to camp under the stars and to camp at night and all that. So we can carry everything over our vehicles or jeeps or 4x4 vehicles, and you camp inside these places.
But are there any plans to construct hotels to have more easier life conditions in the area?
I really don't know, but I hope one day to have beautiful camps and ecologies over there, very close to these beautiful places. I hope that one day we can have a small museum narrate the history of the Eastern Desert, narrate the history of the Bedouins over there, and the Magi and the Bilmese people, because they are the oldest tribes living in the Eastern Desert since the early history of the ancient Egyptian civilization. The ancient Egyptians, by the way, since the time of Pepi I, sent more than 17,000 workers. Imagine that to send 17,000 people, or to send 17,000 people, it needs preparation. And life was very tough at the time. So we can do it right now. The ancient Egyptians did it like 2,900 or like 3,000 years ago, but we can do it right now.
How can we promote this area to tourists? Because a lot of people don't know much about it.
About camping and about the Eastern Desert, and you know about the Western Desert.
About the Eastern Desert and about the monuments available over there.
Yes, the monuments are beautiful, as I told you, and the scenes are very beautiful. And there is something about the history over there that we have Persian monuments. You know that the Persians invaded Egypt during the late period, and the Persian kings started to erase the scenes of the pharaohs, and they replaced them by Persian kings. So we can learn this about history. We need campaigns and we need to do marketing for the Eastern Desert. Of course, the problem that we have in Egypt that we have too much sightseeing. We have beautiful places everywhere. We have Alexandria, we have Luxor, we have Aswan, we have Abu Simbel, we have the Eastern Desert. We have so many things to be seen. The problem right now that there are no tourists coming to visit Egypt, and we can solve this problem easily using the technology. What if we have a game as an application? It's like a treasure hunt, visiting the Eastern Desert, and there is a puzzle, and if you solve this puzzle, you will go to Luxor, and from Luxor you will go to the Oasis, and from the Oasis you go to Alexandria, and it's on the internet, it's on the game. And the game costs, or you sell it for $1, and if you solve this puzzle, you will get a 1 ticket free or a couple of tickets free to Egypt. The whole world will join this game, and it's very free, and we will gain so much money. So you need to think different, you need to think big. If they don't come to Egypt, so we have to go to them. But to go to them, not to carry the monuments and to visit them over there, because this is very traditional and this is very old. We can go there using the technologies.
What about producing documentaries, movies in these areas?
This is. I wanted to talk about this. We can have movies over there, talking about the pharaohs, talking about the Eastern Desert, talking about the Western Desert, talking about all the sites, and it should be an international movie,
yeah,
not
indeed,
an Egyptian
because
movie.
Most of the time it's a local movie
it's
or a
local,
local
it will
documentary that
remain local.
only Egyptians do see. So
Yeah, that's why I mean documentaries to be seen everywhere on the planes and.
Documentaries is okay, but again, it's very local. But I want to get superstars, like Hollywood superstars, to come and to act here in Egypt, and everybody will watch this movie, and this will be a great advertising for Egypt and its sites.
That would bring you, Dr. Nabil, to ask you, because most of the time, even if they are shooting international movies about Egypt or something which was taking place in Egypt, they do not shoot here in Egypt. Sometimes they do go to Morocco or other places because of the complication of the matter here in Egypt.
So the security permits are very
security
difficult.
Permits, it's very difficult, it's very tough. So we need actually to hire, before all of this, we need to hire qualified people for such projects. This is actually will make big difference in Egypt. So if you have right people in the right places, everything will be fine. We need to give them facilities to shoot the movies here in Egypt. We need to have concerts. We need to have big games in Egypt. The movies, as we said before, beautiful activities. The games that I told you before. So everybody now has his mobile, has his tablet, and
who can sponsor such moves or such a way of marketing? Because it's. I think this game, it's just an app on
It's an app, actually, and it could be very expensive, and it should be very expensive, and it should be sponsored by an international company, because if it's local, it will remain local. But if it's an international, so they will make sure that everybody abroad will buy this game, right? So we can make money, and we are still home, right? So it should be internationally marketing or international marketing for such a game and such beautiful activities.
Right. As an expert in tourism, how do you see that we need to find more ideas out of the box to promote tourism in Egypt in general? Not only, of course, we have beautiful deserts, but we also have beautiful sites in Egypt. We have the beaches, we have Luxor and Aswan, we have the best monuments inside Cairo itself. What are the new ideas, out-of-the-box ideas to promote tourism in Egypt?
Out of the box that... instead of waiting for the charter flights, you should have your own charter flights, Egyptian charter flights. So because now they say that this country stops their flights to Egypt, but if I have my own flights over there, nobody will stop me. So I need carriers, I need like Egypt Air to have more...
But what about the travel ban, Dr. Nabil? Many tourists are quite afraid to come because of all these false rumors about the situation in Egypt.
Don't say Egypt. Say Luxor. So if you want to do marketing, because now this is psychologically.
Yes.
If I want to say come to Egypt, they say, oh, Egypt
Not
is dangerous, it's not
safe,
safe.
yeah.
But if I say go to Alexandria, what if I have a cruise line from Cyprus and Greece to Alexandria, only Alexandria? What if I have like charters only to Luxor? So you can use the cities, not the country. So make them like individually or separately marketed.
Right.
So this will be more interesting and more valuable. Because if you make it like Egypt, everybody, and this is actually a crisis, and you can make this crisis, or you can use it as a benefit. So everybody now is watching what's happening in Egypt. So if I start to say that everything in Egypt is now safe, and it is safe because look at the situation right now. So it's different than 2 years ago, right? So we need someone to talk about this. We need someone to say that Egypt is safe. We need someone to talk about the new activities that we are doing. It's very interesting now that the Ministry of Antiquities, the minister has a tourism background, and I think that this will be very valuable in the near future, inshallah. There are so many ideas, and I do believe that if there is a website on the internet, and if anyone has a beautiful idea about tourism in Egypt, we can put it over there, and I think that all the like the ministers or the governments can read this, and I think that this could lead us to better lives, inshallah.
And how do you see the role of the media in this?
The media is everything right now, so we need to have a strong media. If your media is not strong, so we will never achieve anything. So if we have site programs, we need to go over there. We need to go to the places. We can have beautiful discussions and games online and games on the TV. If they solve these games, they can visit the places for free, even for the locals. The locals, the Egyptians themselves, they know nothing about their history.
Yes.
We need to do this starting from the schools. They need to study something about the Egyptian history. They need to know that the traveler Ibn Battuta was the one who said that Egypt is Macedonia. Why Egypt is Macedonia? He said that Egypt is the mother of the world because he came here. He went to Alexandria, the Manhur, the Eastern Desert, and from the Eastern Desert to China. So Ibn Khaldun, for example, he was here in Egypt and he went to talk to the Moguls. And Ibn Khaldun is buried here in Egypt. Nobody knows about such history of Egypt. So we need the people who are concerned with history to educate the Egyptians. This is like a role for all of us actually to know the history. Because once we know the history, this will make loyal generation to take care of this country in the near future and in the far future, inshallah.
Do you believe that this step should be taken by the government, by the official, in order to change the curriculum to create more route for the kids or the students for their country?
I think, of course, the curriculum has to be changed because I remember that I think that they're still studying the same curriculum that I had 20 years ago. So I think that they have to change this.
The students, they lost interest.
They lost interest, actually, and we need to teach our students how to go and how to do a research. We never learned this. So we have the book and we have to study the book and we have to learn by heart, and that's it. And this doesn't create creative minds. If you want to have creative minds, you have to do researches, and we have to teach our students how to research. The Egyptians are very brilliant, I know, and I'm not saying that because we are Egyptians, but I met so many people. But the problem that the Egyptians don't have proper tools. We need tools to be very brilliant and to apply to the needs, or to fulfill the needs, actually. So actually the government has to give the tools, and inshallah everything will be great.
Dr. Mohamed Nabil, tourism expert, many thanks for joining us, sir.
Thank you.
And with this, I think we wrap up this edition of The Breakfast Show. You were in the company of Naveen Ramzi and Mahesti Rabia. Many thanks, Mahesti.
Thank you very much, Naveen. Thank you very much, our viewers. And until we meet tomorrow with a new crew of The Breakfast Show, it's goodbye.